I happen to be of the opinion, as I'm sure a number of you are as well. I don't like to get into a habit of speaking for anybody or imposing my own thoughts as other people's, but I would just imagine there's a possibility of a shared concurrence on this, just amongst some of you, that if you were to consider falling in reverse and survey their numerous aptitudes, you would come to the same conclusion as me in that the cover territory suits them well. And we've seen plenty of examples in recent appearance to speak to this, notably of Falling in Reverse reinventing their own works. Let's say I'm Not a Vampire revamped, or The Drug in Me is reimagined, right? Taking pieces that are grounded in Falling in Reverse history and past album publications and putting them under a metamorphosis that changes their presentation, their styles, their natures, but still maintains a direct reverence and honor to those original foundational pieces. That's what you hope to see with covers, and admittedly that landscape in terms of musical execution can be a bit varied. Luckily for me, in terms of what I've considered on this channel in regards to music and highlighting it as an art form, as many of you know, it's been a favored pursuit in my life and a long-standing ambition that I've made good on the past couple of years to highlight good art. And in the midst of covering a range of artists, including Falling in Reverse, are now returning to this group. I've been waiting for an opportunity. We've highlighted 3 pieces of original works in the past, and all 3 were great. And they are admittedly of recent approach to my playlist. I came across them a couple years ago, and I'm a devout metalhead by choice, so there was an obvious immediate integration there that took place. But I've just fallen madly in love with this group, and I have a lot of respect for their creative abilities. Again, numerous strengths to mention, as I'm sure many of you Fallen in Reverse fans could speak to. But when you consider the cover territory, right? I cover a good share of artists on this channel. I have seen my rounds of covers. And if you want to cite maybe a couple examples, I have an entire playlist labeled covers to highlight those examples, and this one will be included as such as well. But I consider, again, the cover territory. Bands try different things, right? The ambition is to maintain the honorability and respect of the original work. But how bands go about manifesting that? It's a bit varied. Some, might maintain the track as is and maybe just change subtle elements, right? Maybe they maintain the key choice, the genre approach, the intensity, maybe the lack thereof, the vocal stylings, the pacing, or maybe some artists choose to diverge the work and take in fresh directions. I'm curious to see what is going to be happening with Last Resort, this Papa Roach cover. I'm really excited to look at this one, though. I have to admit to you, I'm very familiar with the name Papa Roach. I have humored a couple pieces of his, whether it be Last Resort. Hollywood Horror is pretty good, too, at least on music. I liked that one. That's got a great rhythm to it. Good swing. But Last Resort is a potent number, especially to reimagine. But I consider, again, Falling in Reverse's track record. And admittedly, I still might be going through a couple of their past albums, so I don't remember if they have done covers of artists, or maybe they're not coming to me right now, at least on the top of my mind. This is a fresh appearance for me, at least in that respect, but I'm so curious to hear what Fallen in Reverse does with this piece, because again, if we consider past reimagination, there's a disruption effect that does take place. The pieces are of dominant contrast, though they are still clearly reverential. So will Last Resort follow the same path? Will it be more linked in presentation to, again, the original work? We have to see. But I think it's a perfect piece for Fallen in Reverse to adapt. I mean, Last Resort has quite a history, and even on review, I gotta tell you, I really like the piece. It's strong on lyrical delivery. It has a resonant message, especially for the times we live in and dealing with, the troubles of life and self-harm. That's what the song is particularly about in terms of being an agent of catharsis, which metal, I love it for that aspect. Though, again, I keep open taste to other genres as well. I have a deep reverence for, again, the authenticity of the rock and metal landscape spheres in the music world because, again, of how raw they are. And what it's done for my life in terms of artists creating pieces that directly connect, right, and speak to things that in other circuits we might not hear mention of, especially in day-to-day life. Even discussions on, self-harm and suicidal behaviors, that might be, I think it's talked about more these days, especially with the state the world is in. But still, they might be treated in some other spheres with a bit of a taboo attitude. Whereas in metal and rock, no, artists are very open. And that piece is deeply authentic, it's honest, it's blunt, I respect it for that. And on music, it's great. By the way, I love being reminded of it because, again, I think, again, my foundational influences in the rock world, and it goes back into the early 2000s. So the video presentation, the mood of the video, the rhythm of it, it was a perfect style, again, to match with what brought me into rock in the first place. Just many years ago, and it's been quite the journey, but I mean, in general, just with music, I think that's really where I came to an emergence point, was again my early childhood in the 2000s. But I saw so many music videos that kind of fit again in that aesthetic, so it just had that nice throwback feel. But as a piece, it's a great work. How will Fallen in Reverse reinvent it? I'm very curious. Or show honor, right? And keep it maybe similar. We have to discover that for ourselves. But it's nice to be able to highlight Fallen in Reverse again. I've loved being able to showcase them as I do every artist on this channel. There's not been one song or artist I've not loved bringing on. And I love to highlight good art. And maybe inspire paths for you if you've not happened down certain routes yet. I imagine many of you have, right? There's plenty of Fallen in Reverse fans. I know how potent this fan base is. And admittedly, I'm much younger in my days by comparison to some of you, but I have a deep affection for this group and what I've humored. They are extremely talented, as many of you know, based on past routes that we took. Maybe some of you took the journey with me and those were your first steps of approach for this group. Maybe some of you have yet to humor them. They do have good circulation, so I'd imagine many of you have heard the name Fallen in Reverse, you've not entertained them yet. This may be your first entrance. I'd recommend going back in their back catalog for sure, in their extensive library of work, because there's a lot of pieces that are really good, but I think you're going to have a fun time, just on presumption of what we're about to entertain and the aptitude of what Ronnie Radke and the guys demonstrate in their work. I've loved humoring them. I can't wait to experience this with you. A first ever Fallen in Reverse cover to an external piece, but one that I think Fallen in Reverse could do quite well. We have to see the direction that this takes, but since the minute it debuted, I'm like, it's another Fallen in Reverse video, which I'm sure that'll be fun. They always are. Let's watch it for ourselves and have a simultaneous journey of enjoying music together. That's what I hope to have on this channel, and to perhaps forge paths for you to explore good artists that maybe you haven't entertained yet. To be inspired by good art in the world, because it does still exist, universally in the music scene for sure. Fallen in Reverse, I hope you have a fun time if this is your first entrance. Let's humor this piece together. I'm going to go ahead. In fact, it's titled Reimagined, right? So this might take on a very distinct flair. I'm extremely curious. Anyway, video is going to commence, and as per usual, if you're not used to my format, lyrics are provided in the video. So if you want to read along with the message of the piece, which again, on last resort, is just so good and timeless, deeply resonant, deeply human, you have that available to you. It's softer. I'm a big symphonic metal guy. That instantly appeals. This is different. This is good though, it's smooth. This is my last resort. I love the linger on the background vocals. Just how it echoes. That's a good trail. Cut my life into pieces. Embrace my last resort. Suffocation, no breathing. Don't give a fuck if I cut my arm bleeding. Do you even care if I die bleeding? Would it be wrong or it be right? This amplifies the message beautifully. Chances are that I might. Mutilation out of sight, and I'm contemplating suicide. Emboldening the pathos for sure. The piano isolation is such a good choice. With that symphonic intrusion though, it's just beautiful. This is a beautiful adaptation. And Ronnie, wow, his talents on vocals, that was good. He nailed that drop. I got a lot of respect for him as an artist. The emphasis, good time for that to invade. And still that symphonic root is carried. Incredible choices. The vocal application, man. That's just perfection with this number. If there's anybody that can make a yell in the great quite well with symphonic, especially when it is more of a ballad-centered orchestral number, it's Ronnie. That is a cover done beautifully. Very much in the styling, again, those past numbers that Fawn in Reverse has done that have reimagined their predecessor works to something new. And again, showing reverence, not losing that. I don't want to speak for Papa Roach, but I would imagine that is... I would imagine he feels quite respected with that work. It maintains... Again, they're vastly different, right? Papa Roach's version is much more of like a 2000s era pop, or not, I don't want to say pop, like a rock metal number with that alternative sound to it and that beat. I mean, it has that, as I said, nostalgic rewind effect, especially when you listen to it now in 2023. I just immediately get throttled back again to that 2000s foundation. And it's still, the how do I want to phrase this? The rebelliousness to the status quo, right, of life in a troubled state, and that it's speaking so honorably to what many people deal with, and the travesty that life can oftentimes, that we witness for ourselves, right? To different, contexts and respects and severities, but many people have, witnessed the troubles of life firsthand, and it's been depressing, tragic, upsetting. I myself have dealt with, my own share of challenges in life that have been quite obstructive and undesired, right? That might have, in fact, led into, we'll just say self-destructive tendencies to sum it up, right? And to whatever extent it can be defined that and how it's applied on a subjective basis from person to person, right? We could all speak to different respects on it. I feel that, again, that embodied rage, right? At somebody, I don't want to phrase it like that. What Papa Roach did in terms of delivering a song that is deeply authentic and speaks again to the heart of the issue in a way that it's still to this day is a timeless resonation, that embodied rage at the state of life, right, in the midst of those types of seasons. It was a good compliment. And we talk about, music... when you're considering constructions of tones and tunes blended with specific narratives, especially in the rock and metal regard, we might speak of bridges forming between between score and narrative. I've highlighted a lot of songs tonight where I've had the discussion, funny enough. It wasn't my intention that that's the direction that this would go, but yet it seems to be a mainstay of at least today. I credit that in particular. I just wrapped up coverage of the newest Amber Lynn EP, Convinced. And that was a discussion we had there. So it's kind of funny, again, how it seems other artists are now overlapping with Falling in Reverse in commentary. But we consider, as I said, amplifying the pathos to a piece, right? Through not just the narrative, but through a fitting music accompaniment. The way this is reimagined and giving more of a ballad symphonic orchestral presence. And I'm a big symphonic metal guy. So when those tunes popped up, tones, in the past reimagined version, specifically of I'm Not a Vampire, I love that work. It's so good. And again, the original inspiration, for sure. That's still just a classic rock metal number. But the reimagined version, I love the softness of it, the delicate nature. It's just so beautiful and atmospheric of a work. That to mirror back to that, with a different song that has a less dark atmosphere, right? Still has that reality to it, but has a bit of a hopeful tonality, especially as you see the story fleshed out in this video, which is imagined, again, fitting Falling in Reverse quite beautifully with the CGI effects. There's a lot of attention into detail put into the presentation. I respect it greatly because it makes for such a fun, universal experience. Not just, again, on song and taking that in, but absorbing the presentation of the work. Which embodies, I would say, again, like I said, the chaotic state of life and perhaps the world in some respect. It kind of falls along that path. But this is more so a tune that commands your attention on narrative and music delivery. How this is reimagined with a softer approach, but given a more hopeful key choice, rather than, again, in comparison to past softer songs that have also been the reimagined model from Falling in Reverse. I love the application here. And I truly feel, again, like I'm one with the narrative. As I proceed for this piece, I feel that it's directly just speaking to me. It connects on a deeper level. As did Last Resort, right? Still, that is such an inspirational work. But what Falling in Reverse has done is taken that piece and given it, again, I think, a fitting application, especially when you're dealing with more troubled messages, like addressing suicide and self-harm and self-destructive tendencies. This might be common for bands to take a bit of a softer approach, right? Not always. From time to time, I've myself witnessed numbers of other tunes from different artists that have also taken a bit of a harder road, like Last Resort, originally from Papa Roach. 3 Days Grace is a couple, for example. Pain, I think, what's that, everyone? Well, Never Too Late, I think, is maybe a good middle ground between hard and soft, right? Maybe that one's a bit of a point of differentiation. But, oh man, I love that number. That one's good. But there's been other groups as well that have spoken to the same thing, to different respects and choices. I think the softer hand on this piece and the delicate nature to it really emboldens the message well in a way that for the listener, it just has that point of resonation. As a work and how it's delivered on behalf of the score's methodology, the piano isolation, great cue. When the symphonic drive kicks in, you automatically feel like if you're a symphonic metal person like me, it just sweeps you in, right? And the vocal delivery on Ronnie. He's just so talented. The natural aggression, it's so organic, but it meshes beautifully. Whereas in other places we might say, well, if we could integrate a yell that has the element of a scream and a raspiness in the background to it, it might come across as disruptive. But coupled with the intention of this piece and the specific application to the symphonic flair and how dominant that score is, I think there's a fitting integration where the two blend synergistically, right? It's even. It's not obstructive. It doesn't distract you. It instead compels your attention and your interest. This is just a beautifully developed number on structure. The way it's planned out, again, the isolation points, the string support, the vocals, which Ronnie, again, always satisfies in that respect. I have so much respect for him as an artist. Just free pieces I've publicly humored, all of which were great, but past works as well that I've entertained from Falling in Reverse. I have a deep connection with this group, even if I've only been a fan for a little while now, and many of you advance me for sure in your time spent with them. I've been floored by how impressive they are on delivery, on ambition, on reach, and to see the constant adaptation to their strengths, at least of present standing, and where they expand. It's just a fun experience. And as I said in the cover regard, though, this is a particular sweet spot for them. I truly feel that way. where are the past pieces? Again, feel free to chime in down below. I might have this wrong, because again, I'm still in a bit of the early days of perusing through, again, parts of their back catalog I've not happened upon yet. I've hit on the major hits, for example, but maybe there's some songs, again, that I'm forgetting about that would fit the cover regard to external artists, rather than just reimaginings of past work from their own catalog. But those pieces have succeeded, again, in being faithful in envisionment to the original foundational works, but creating new, unique visions. Same with this. This is my first experience with them, again, on external artist regard, and I think they delivered on magnifying the strength of Last Resort as a number, and showing it honor and praise to, again, what Papa Roach originally envisioned, but in tailoring it differently to suit their own ambitions and interest, especially with that symphonic flair, though. Man, I love that. I love that element among the reimagined works. It's just so good. Maybe we're going to get more of that in the future. Who knows? Maybe that's just the keyword of reimagine something and revamp, and immediately that's where your attention goes to, oh, this is going to have a symphonic metal flair. I don't know. I love the navigation of that number. It's a fabulous cover. That's what we hope for, again. Bit of a diversity in terms of execution, for sure, right? Among many groups, I'm sure you can think of particular examples. On this channel, luckily, everything has been great to a variety of respects, and so many artists at this point. And Falling in Reverse, a never-fitting attribution to that, in my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below on Last Resort, Reimagined, and whatever approach you take in terms of your Falling in Reverse experience, whether you happen to be a longtime fan of theirs or if this is a fresh entrance for you. And again, if this happens to be a fresh debut, I definitely encourage you to dig deeper with them and maybe enjoy them at a greater level. Maybe, take the experience down with me that we had in terms of first impressions with their work in the past. Let's say, for example, what did I cover? Zombified, Voices in My Head, and Watch the World Burn. Those are all wonderful pieces to highlight. Maybe you haven't entertained those yet. Those were fun, right? And if you liked this, those are different, at least on styling, but I think you'll like those numbers as well. The strength of what you see here embodied by the band, and Ronnie Radke is a lyrical vocalist. I think you'll come to like this group. I can say that on faith. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below on this piece, as well as just, your thoughts in general of Falling in Reverse. I think it's great. Again, the minute this dropped, I'm like, another opportunity to humor Falling in Reverse. I can't wait. As I know many of you are. I've seen comments from other people who, in the music coverage space, who would share in that. And like, oh, the minute Falling in Reverse releases something, everybody just has to happen upon it immediately. It just magnifies your captivation, because this group is just so gosh darn talented. But in the cover territory, I really feel this is a point of real strength for them. From what I've humored, I've seen a satisfactory delivery, again, in showing honor to past works, but tailoring them to suit new types of storytelling methods and visions. I think Last Resort fits that same mold. And again, I don't want to speak for anybody, but I would imagine Papa Roach, but this is of great respect to him, and he probably feels that way, that it is such an honorable piece. It takes that same potency that number had, and it's, I imagine a significant replay as well in terms of rock music history among many fans, right? I know it's probably still got wide, of course it does. It's a timeless work. It still connects. I'd imagine for many people it is that point of catharsis that perhaps in a troublesome season that they need. Music can be that healing method. It's, like many things in life, right? Whether it be friends, family, faith, I speak to all respects of, that's been an integration in my life, but music as well. It's a beautiful healing aid. It's been there for me in times of distress. And Last Resort still communicates, I think, that same authenticity that I greatly respect in the metal environment. And Falling in Reverse takes that same ambition, tailors it a bit differently, but in a way that is so satisfactory to, again, the original motivation for that piece, but communicates it in such a humble, hopeful manner, with, again, that dominant symphonic flair and a departure from, again, the foundation to something softer, more ethereal. Again, I like both. I'm not trying to undercut in any way Last Resort. That was the foundational work, and it should be regarded with the respect it deserves. But Falling in Reverse, their own effort is quite, I feel, of respect. I think it's a fitting adaptation, and one that is quite beautiful to witness, especially, again, in manifesting that message and seeing the integration between narrative and song, and how there's a bridge formed that amplifies the pathos and the connection to the listener. I think it satisfies wonderfully in that respect. It's a good cover. It's a respectful cover. That's what we hope for, and this one is Like everything from Falling in Reverse thus far, beautifully executed. Thank you so much for watching this video. Before you bounce, feel free to drop a like and comment, subscribe to this channel with a ding on the bell, and share this video with your friends. And consider checking out the description here. There you'll find links to my other channels, as well as addresses to my other social media accounts and ways you can help support my work if you feel so inclined. May God bless you, and looking forward to when our paths cross again.